beginning of my video. Boom!
Welcome back to Boring Reviews.
Boring land.
Oh, just kidding.
Blasphemer!
Hello,
right.
Boring Review Nation!
Kind of pointless.
We know all things. It was over in a snap.
We really want it. Alright, we'll be nice.
Only you can be a Patreon.
Oh my gosh!
You don't need to follow the show to be hyped. All right, welcome back to Boring Reviews. Nick here.
Gabe.
And I might be shouting because my microphone is broken. The audio abilities on my computer that we stream from is horrible. So I may just not talk that much to, save your ears from having to listen to it. But we are ready to review the movie Ring di Basanti, which translates into Paint Me with the Colors of Spring. And we are dropping this on the heels of our review of The Legend of Bhagat Singh, since they are very connected. I'm not going to say similar, but very connected. And it's almost like a sequel type situation, but from a different world. And we're excited to check out this movie. We know how much the Indian audiences love this movie. So we're excited to hopefully do some justice to it.
I was gonna interject when you said I won't be talking that much, and I guess I was saying, and I could furiously see people furiously typing right now. How's that any different than whenever you're doing the review again? I know. I'm trying my best.
No,
but before we move on, guys, we had dropped our review for Bhagat Singh, got a lot of love on it, and in the comments they let us know that unfortunately Irrfan Khan has passed away from cancer, so we want to send out our condolences to his family and his fans. The man was a national treasure. He was in a lot of films. We actually knew him before we immersed ourselves into Indian films. We didn't know how big of an actor he was, but because he had been in some American films. What was the latest season he was in? Was it Jurassic Park, I want to say?
Jurassic World, yeah, the one right. Recent that I know about. He was in some others like Life of Pi and whatnot, but yeah.
Right. But it kind of makes us stop and think right now. Lately, all we're talking about is coronavirus and deaths related to coronavirus. But real life also still happens, and the normal, from car accidents to just regular health issues, all that stuff still into play. So we're in a very different time, and I'm sure that his death obviously is affecting a lot of people, but probably more so now that everybody's indoors and experiencing this social distancing and this loneliness. So again, our condolences go out to his family and his fans.
Yeah, totally. It's horrible. I mentioned a little bit on the video that we posted the other day about Fluffy goes to India, but it's tragic because, like I mentioned in that one, when you hear one of your favorite actors, and I'm not gonna say and be pandering and say he's one of my favorite actors because I've just got introduced to his movies, but for our audience, I can only assume he's one of your favorite actors of all time. When someone like that goes down with illness, especially something like cancer, you think, of course, they're going to bounce back. This is going to be a great story. They're going to be able to return back to their job. And unfortunately, it's not in the works for this guy. It's not what's going to happen. And even though we don't know, or at least I don't know this actor personally, your heart goes out because he seemed like such an awesome, genuine person. It seemed like he was someone that really put his heart into his work. And for us, we're lucky enough to be able to see that in these movies. And, I'm excited to be able to discover more Irrfan Khan films that we have not seen yet. But it's gonna be a little heavy-hearted as we do so. So my condolences definitely go out to him, his family. I hope they can get through it. His fans that love him, we definitely respect his work and appreciate what he did. And it's kind of a different topic, but since we are doing Ring di Basanti today and we just did Legend of Bhagat Singh, I have to correct myself. I made a huge blunder by saying it was Bose who assassinated Gandhi. The person who actually assassinated was Goetz. Or Goads. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. And I'm not going to say that, excuses because there are similar names. I just got it wrong. I did look that fact up right before we reviewed, but I still messed it up. So I do apologize. You definitely don't want to say that one innocent person assassinated someone else when they had nothing to do with it. So I just want to say correction there, and thanks for letting me know, and thanks for being kind in the comments and respectful and understand that it was just a blunder, nothing personal. But let's go ahead and jump into this review. So this movie, funny story, I started watching it at home. That's not the funny part. But then I finished watching this in a dentist chair because my dentist is awesome, and they've got a TV right in front of you while they're working on you, and it's not blocking your line of sight. And so he asked me, he's a friend of mine, what do you want to watch? And I said, how about an Indian film? Turn on the subtitles, and can you please turn it to this minute and this second? He was very accommodating. And so I watched the rest of the film in the dentist chair, and it was awesome because I was able to sit there and just concentrate on that while they were doing some work. And this movie is completely different than what I thought it was going to be when me and Jody reacted to the trailer. I mean, the premise was basically the same. These actors who, do this period piece or this historical thing, and they get included and they get into it. But I'm so glad that we were told to watch Legend of Bhagat Singh before you watch this, because you're not going to have any idea. And I wouldn't have had any idea what was going on. I wouldn't have known about the history. I'm not going to say I totally understood everything in the movie after watching Bhagat Singh, but I will tell you that if I did not watch The Legend of Bhagat Singh and understand that history, I don't know if I would have given this a grade higher than maybe a B- or so, just because I would not have really connected or understood what was going on. Watching that film, Legend of Bhagat Singh, even though it didn't give me everything, it really helped me to better understand this movie.
I tell you what, it is important to watch Legend of Bhagat Singh before you watch Rang de Basanti so that you can get context, okay? Because had I not seen it, as a matter of fact, I saw this with my wife, and she did not see Legend of Bhagat Singh. So we're sitting down watching this, and she was like, again, spoilers. You guys know when I'm here, I'm spoilers. But she's like, I can't believe that these guys would, go ahead and do this, for or do their, commit the act that they committed, even though it was for, in their eyes, justifiable reasons and whatnot. But you kind of understand where they came from once you watch Bhagat Singh. The closest thing I can compare it to is when you have these method actors like a real good example, Heath Ledger, right? He became Joker. A lot of people say that role killed him to the point where he became that character. Or I can't remember, Christian Bale, when he was in The Machinist. The guy got so nasty, so sick. He lost, I think it was 90 pounds. He was nothing but skin and bones. And that has to take a psychological effect on you. So understanding that they were playing these characters, and then it's like they embodied these characters. They started believing the role. That's why they went ahead and did what they did. Where if not, these college kids weren't going to do that, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So that's why it's important to understand, especially that they were right around the same age as Bhagat Singh and the rest of the revolutionaries that ended up dying in the movie Bhagat Singh, or I shouldn't say dying, and they ended up sacrificing their lives for the freedom of India.
And these main core characters in the modern age, led by Aamir Khan, who, I mean, is this guy ever not good in something? I mean, honestly, this guy is so phenomenal. He can play any role, and he does it with such charisma. I mean, it's unbelievable. He plays a character DJ. It's him and his friends, and they embody, and they so well are metaphors for the young generation of today, and maybe even the next generation as well when we were younger, because a lot of people today, the main message is, don't tell me what to do, don't tell me how to feel, let me live my life. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's very much part of our culture. Maybe not now since we're all locked down, but where they're at this historic site and they're doing the drinking game and the dancing, and they're falling backwards trying to see if they're not going to fall. They're living in the moment. DJ's mom's like, why don't you stick around longer? Why don't you sit still for a second? And we find out more about his character later on why he's all over the place. But they embody that young generation so well. And then when they go through their transition, it's like, wow, they really felt the spirit of Bhagat Singh. And I don't want anyone who's seen this movie to think that I think the spirit of Bhagat Singh is representative of what they did at the end of the movie. I'm not saying that because of Bhagat Singh's spirit and his friends and his men that they went out and did this, extreme thing. The spirit was, there's a problem in our country right now, and what are we willing to sacrifice to make that problem go away? Now, I don't want to go all over the place. Why don't you give us a quick synopsis, and we can do this rather quickly, but a quick synopsis of the movie, just in case someone may have forgotten about this film, which I highly doubt.
Okay, so there's a British girl who is making a film, a documentary about Bhagat Singh, because it so happens that her grandfather, her great grandfather, I believe it is,
Yeah, that was cool.
was the actual sailor that was there, and she has the same pocket watch that he had when Bhagat Singh was executed, that he dropped it, cracks there. So it's really important for her to make. She goes to her producers are like, yeah, we can't make this, for whatever reason. And I think that politics played a role, because they're like, if it was Gandhi or somebody else, we would do it, but not Bhagat Singh, because again, one man's revolutionary is another man's terrorist, you know what I mean? And again, she's working for a British media company. So I'm sure that they don't want to, put light to that situation. So again, after it doesn't get made, she goes herself and takes off to India to meet up with her contacts there and get the film made, do it on her own. No backing from this movie studio. In any event, she one of the funny parts of the movie, she goes to her friend and they're casting at this local college, to try to get people for the film. And you got all these different characters. You got the one Indian that has the cornrows. He's a rapper, obviously very Americanized. He's got his jersey on. There's a couple other guys just acting silly, a couple ladies there. And she's like, man, we could maybe use 2 of them for background, but none of them are actors. It's a funny line, right? So in any event, she goes out later that night to hang out with her contact, and they meet up with her boyfriend, who happens to be friends with Aamir Khan's character, DJ, who's this cool kid in college. Everybody knows him. He's a superstar. And DJ's friend, Suki, who are the 2 playing the drinking game. So she's like, the minute she sees them, it like flashes to her, these are my guys. These are they even resemble Bhagat Singh and some of the other revolutionaries. And then she meets the one, he was Pakistani, the one Pakistani dude. The one Muslim.
Yeah,
no, he was Pakistani, right?
No,
yeah,
they called. See, it threw me off too because they called him Pakistani. I think just because he was Muslim. I don't think he was. Maybe he was, and that's why his family was there. But his name was Aslam or something like that, right?
Right, Aslam, correct. They met Aslam, and Aslam was also really good for a role for the role of the Muslim person that was a part of Bhagat Singh's inner circle. So she cast them all, and at first they're not taking it serious, but then they end up taking it serious. There was one shot where it kind of bothered me, but then I kind of understood it, and it was the motorcycle shot. When they'll leave there, right, here comes these other really religious Hindus, right? And they're like, no, this is sacred site. What are you guys doing here? I've warned you before. You can't be drinking here. And they kick them out. Big fight's about to happen. Here comes the cops, breaks everything out. So when they leave, but Aamir Khan and Suki are on these motorcycles, and just the way that was shot, it was like really, I know this movie was 2006, but I think it was shot that way because it was her shooting it from her camera, if that makes sense, because she's obviously filming the movie as well. But it was kind of like low quality the way it was shot, but it would make sense if she was actually shooting them right in the motorcycles. In any event,
well, I think there was a lot of like, I'm not sure this is what you're talking about, but I know it's a lot of like slow motion, but a lot of blurred colors behind. Even to embody like their young, youthful, carefree attitude. I thought it was really cool how they had all those lighted V's. I'm not sure what that was all about, down the roadway on the side of the trees or whatever. That made for a cool shot, but it kind of just made me think of their carefree attitude, because we also saw the slow motion black and white when they would show their historic counterparts when they were playing Azad or Bhagat Singh or whatever. But I did notice that it was definitely different. But again, I think this is 2007. So this is, an older film, even though it's 2006. It doesn't seem like that was a long time ago. That was 14 years ago.
So you know, in any event, just to get through it quickly, they start taking it more seriously, meaning the acting roles. She gets them their parts. They start embodying the characters, and even the original person that came to kick them out, the religious guy. I want to say his Laxman was his name. He becomes one of her actors, and they work out their differences. But the whole movie, and this is what I was not expecting, one of the her contact's boyfriend is a pilot, right? He's a MiG pilot, and he ends up dying in this accident. So what happens is that after he dies and the whole family's mourning him, the prime minister gets accused of having bought cheap MiG planes from the Russians that they know weren't suitable for parts, and that's why something like, I guess, 200 pilots had died in a decade or something like that in MiG accidents, I should say. So the whole country is up in arms. They go out to protest because they're saying that the prime minister was only doing that to line his pockets. And then the pilot's mom gets beaten into a coma. A whole bunch of protesters get beaten up. And this is where these 5 young guys who are playing Bhagat Singh and his revolutionaries, you know, they kind of like, what are we going to do? Same thing like Bhagat Singh, what are we going to do for our country? There's this underlying theme early on where they're carefree and they're like, look, I don't care about this country. As soon as I graduate college, I'm out of India. And now they care nothing but this country because they see that no matter what it is, it affects them as a whole. So basically Bhagat Singh, not Bhagat Singh, I'm sorry, Aamir Khan and his friends embody Bhagat Singh, and I guess that's where they got the idea to kill the prime minister the way that Bhagat Singh and his men ended up killing the police officer that was responsible for Lala's death. Because to them, this death of their friend, who's this pilot, this MiG pilot, and his mother beaten into a coma is just as bad as when Lala died. It really has the whole country up in a stir. So they kill the prime minister, and if they had left the film that way, I think they would have not been justified. And even more, I would have said that they were doing the memory of Bhagat Singh an injustice. But what they did is, after they killed the prime minister, and now they're martyring the prime minister on television and you know, singing his praises. They're like, no, we need people to know why we did this. There was no other country trying to destabilize the Indian government. This wasn't a coup. This was because he's turning on his own people and selling us out for profit, basically. So they went to a radio station and did something that I don't think anyone saw coming, and went on, you know, live airways and confessed to the crime, knowing that the police were going to come get them. But just like Bhagat Singh, they didn't care. They weren't trying to get away. They wanted to be heard, and they knew if they were caught, they would be heard, so that the prime minister would not be martyred, and they would understand why they did the actions that they did. It was for these 200 pilots who have died and their families. So that's pretty much a quick synopsis, as quickly as I could do it, as far as the whole film is concerned. But there's other little nuances to this film that are absolutely beautiful. Some shots that are beautiful we could talk about. But I think that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, no, the shots are beautiful. The locations they chose were awesome. Like I said, like the one that the friend that originally, I guess, I'm not sure, was he Hindu or whatnot, where he was mad at them for being and partying in that place, and eventually he became part of their crew. The guy who wanted to campaign for that politician. I thought that relationship was really interesting. Laxman, because he, you know, he comes off, okay, this guy's going to be our antagonist right off the bat. And then you find out, hey, there's a little more to this. And he's a very passionate person, but when he sees the lies in the politician that he wants to support, he's willing to take a beating and go back to the other people. I thought that was really cool, how that characterization worked out. I thought it was interesting how, you know, boys will be boys, and that's how they acted at certain times. And the girl, the foreigner, was really upset about the fighting with DJ and Laxman, and how, you know, he's like, you know what, we're sorry, we took care of it, we're cool. And he actually meant it, because they were cool after that point. They did talk it out, they did figure it out. But there were a lot of great locations. The area they were at with they're like on the second level, I'm not sure if that was the same area or a different area, where they decide to hatch their plan with the radio station, and not just that, but how to get back to the get back at that politician, I should say. That was a beautiful location. This was such an interesting film, such an interesting way to pay homage to the spirit of Bhagat Singh in its own new age way, where they're making a movie. I thought it was quite interesting and quite original.
I think that one of the really interesting facts about this is that they always say, can you hear the director's voice? Whenever a movie's powerful, whenever a movie is really good, you hear the director's voice. And he kind of establishes where early on, everyone's accusing young people of not caring about the country, that they're lackadaisical. But then you understand the plight of the young people where, listen, no matter what we do, most of us are going to end up in poverty. Most of us are going to end up working. We're not going to get a fair shake because the system is corrupt. The government is corrupt. And while before it might have been a fight against the British, a fight against imperialism, which is what Bhagat Singh and his friends ultimately and his revolutionaries gave up their lives to do. Now the fight is against, this big corporate greed that's going on all around the world. And we're not just talking about India, but worldwide, where politicians are selling out their own people. You know what I mean? People in power are selling out their own people for a buck. The fight is really against the establishment and against wealth, against affluence, people of money, people of power. And today, they look very much like us. Okay, in India, you're not fighting the British anymore. You're fighting corrupt Indian politicians. In America, you're not fighting, whatever. Well, terrorism is quote unquote we've been fighting for years, right? But what's the fight really against? You know what I mean? Against economic disparity, against inequality, against racial prejudice, against all these things. And it's a fight within. So that's kind of where I thought the director was taking it. I thought it was really brave that the director did that, because a lot of times, directors would be kind of off where, hey, if I do this, or if I say this in my film, I'm going to be attacked and I'm not going to get any financial backing. And he kind of put himself out there and saying, yeah, that this is one of the problems in our country, where, again, how true is it? I'm not sure. We don't live in India. We don't get the local news over there. So we're not sure how much of an issue this is. But apparently, at the end of the film, they have the notes and the text, and it shows how over 200 people have died and make accidents over the last decade or 2 decades, whatever it is. And let's be honest, there's corruption everywhere, man. Corruption and politics goes hand in hand. So I wouldn't put it past them, so to speak. But I thought that was one of the most interesting parts about this film.
No, for sure. I was telling Gabe before we did this review that I've been reading Ready Player One. And there's a big message in there about how greed, it ruins the things that we love. And in that book, The Oasis, the virtual reality, internet world, community, universe that was created, they're trying to stop the IOI organization from taking control of the Oasis and winning the Easter egg hunt, because they would just profitize everything and ruin everything and ruin this place that the original creator wanted to be free to everyone and a place to escape. And unfortunately, you have that in all facets, and a lot of times it's related to the rich. Now, I'm not going to, paint with one brush that all rich are that way. Obviously not, but it's unfortunate that too many times the corrupt and the rich, they make too many decisions that affect so many other people. And like you mentioned with the pilot and that kind of corruption, it's hard for me to relate to these characters, because the decision they make to their sacrifice to send a message is not the decision I would ever make in a million years. And I'm not trying to be self-righteous. I just know myself. There's no way I would have made that decision. But it comes with a huge sacrifice to make a decision like that. They're throwing away their entire lives for a statement that might be heard or might not be heard. It was very interesting, the reaction they got. And I do think that is a realistic reaction. I'm not sure if that would happen if something like that happened. Most people look at that and say what they would say terrorism, and they would say horrible, and these guys are monsters. But for those who are of like age and able to listen to that and understand what the message they're saying, I don't put that past society reacting that way. And I'm not sure if it's a bad thing that they would react that way. That's where this movie, you know, it has some silliness, not zaniness, but some silliness and some comedic aspects in the beginning, and then it goes very serious at the end, and you see those lives of those previous, I don't want to say ancestors, so not that old, but historic figures embodied in these young men. I thought the performance by, what's the character's name? Shuki. Let me find his name right here. Yeah, Suki. I thought the performance by Sharman Joshi was fantastic. He played a character that I most related to, the character that wanted nothing to do with this and was freaking out and was scared and was cowering down and saying, no, we're not going to do this. But at the end of the day, he wanted to be with his friends, and he trusted his friends, and he was terrified. He did not want to die. He was not going to be the hero where he slayed the dragon, but he understood that this is what his friends want to do, and he understood that he had no girlfriend. He even made a joke about that at the end. He's like, looks like I'm going to die without a girl. But he was a character that was not this easy to follow hero. He was a regular person who was scared out of his mind, but at the end of the day, follow what his friends want to do. And I really connected with that character. I really like the Aslam character that you mentioned as well, played by Kunal Kapoor. I feel like I've seen him before in trailer reactions that we've done. Obviously, you know, the character that played Bhagat Singh or Karen, Siddharth Narayan, he did an excellent job as well. I thought it was interesting that they did not cast Aamir Khan as the Bhagat Singh character. That was cool. That would have been an easy decision to make. He's the most popular one. He's high profile. Let's make him Bhagat Singh. That's not what happened. He played the Azad character, historic character. But it definitely was very interesting. The whole Quran storyline with his father, played by, I mean, this guy is in everything. He was in Baby. He was in MS Dhoni. I mean, this guy, I'm going to find his Anupam, I think his name Kerr. I want to make sure, Anupam Kerr. This guy did a great job in a small role he had. That whole storyline with him and his son was heartbreaking. And again, I would never have made the decision he made. But I mean, this guy, he eventually became, you know, an extremist.
You know what? I tell you what, it would have been easy, like you said, to cast Aamir Khan as the main. Well, he was the main lead, but he didn't play Bhagat Singh, so he didn't play the main character of these revolutionaries. But I think it was a smart choice. First of all, Aamir Khan, and we've seen this in the past, has no trouble in films sharing the light. Okay, again, Dangal, which is one of my favorite Aamir Khan films, he steps back and also shares the light with the lead actresses in that film. But one of the interesting things here is that this character is probably be put to the ultimate test. And when we're talking about Karam's character, because here he is with his friends who are revolutionaries, who or become these revolutionaries, and he's the guy who initially comes from privilege. His thing is, let me get out of college so I can get out of this country. I don't want anything to do with it. His dad's a big businessman and also involved in corrupt politics, and you know, one of these things where it's easy to say when you're on the other side of the table. It's easy to say, yeah, rich people are bad and point the finger and blah, 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 blah. But what if it's you? And that's where he was actually presented with, where not him necessarily, but his father was also profiting from this, from these scandals. His father was also cheating people. And then even when he's on the radio station, on the airwaves, confessing to the crime of killing the prime minister, somebody calls him out and says, yeah, but what about the allegations against your father? And we didn't know this up until this point, but then it's revealed that when he last saw his father, all we saw them was embrace. He took his life. That's how committed this dude was. Now, am I am by no means supporting what he did, but that's just showing how committed this guy was. And I think it was ultimately that they did embody these revolutionaries so much that they believed it and they became obsessed with that idea of righteousness. And he knew his father wasn't a righteous man, so he took his father's life. So that's just showing how committed he was. To me, I think he paid the ultimate price above all the other guys, because yes, all of them gave his life, he didn't have to. He would have been well off because his father was well off. All he had to do was graduate. He was going to go to the States and go study, but he gave up that privilege. He gave up the affluence, and on top of everything else, he took his own father's life. And that's like, wow, this guy was committed. Now, I don't think I know wouldn't have the wherewithal to do that, no matter how committed I was. It's like in movies when you find out your mom or your dad or your sister, who are your sibling, is the bad guy you've been hunting all along. That's always the gut punch, because you're like, oh, what am I supposed to do? It's my pop. So that's, you know what I mean? That's whoever's related to me. And to me, he sacrificed the most. But I thought it was the bravest thing because he went in knowing he was going to sacrifice the most. These other guys did not have as much to lose as he did. He was a popular kid. He had money. He came from wealth. He influenced. He was going to graduate college and basically leave, where we talked about, and go study abroad, where we talked about Aamir Khan's character, right, earlier, that one of the funny things about him was that he was in college for how long was it? Or he had been out of college
like
for
4 years or something like that. Yeah.
4 years. He was just hanging around because that's what he knew was going to make him important. And after he left there, he knew he wasn't going to be important. This was a lot different for Kumar character. Okay. His character had, his future ahead of him. You know what I'm saying? And it's one of those things where it was an interesting point that the director made. We always want to be self-righteous, but what happens when something actually affects you? Let's just talk about this situation right now. Nothing else. This is not even close to what other people are sacrificing. But in order to save lives, in order to stop the spread of COVID-19, we're being asked to do what? Stay indoors, pretty much. You know what I mean? Stay indoors. At least here in America, stay indoors. They're even cutting us checks, for here. We know some people are losing their jobs and income. They're supplementing our income. Just stay indoors. And there are places where people are like, absolutely not. They're not willing to sacrifice that little bit of freedom. So when it's something that impacts you, again, how willing are you to make that sacrifice? Everybody wants to be the altruistic person, but when it comes down to it, how many of us really are? You know what I mean? And I thought that was the most interesting thing. If you were in that position and, you did nothing wrong, you were just born into money. You were born into it. But it's your family that are the Rockefellers of the world. Rockefellers, please don't lock me down and come in and, bust in my windows. Okay, this is a statement. But just being, those powerful families of the world, you happen to just be born into that, okay? Should you still be faulted for that? And if you are you any less virtuous to saying, oh yeah, this is my family's done. They've, abused these people, they enslaved these other people or whatever. How hard would it be to stand up against that? You know what I mean?
No, totally. And, it's this movie. I feel like I understand these characters, even though I don't relate to them, because they're connecting these characters to what extreme measures were taken by Bhagat Singh and his men. And not terror measures, but extreme measures of sacrifice and standing for what you believe in. But I feel like we can still relate to these characters in our own little way. For example, if you feel like corruption and money is a bad thing in any kind of avenue society, but you're like this Quran character where your father, and again, this father did not hate his son. This father did not hate on his son. He bossed him around. He wanted him to go to the best schools, but he gave him a hug. I love you, son. I'm sorry. I love you. I know. It's harder for him to make the decision he made because his father showed him no malice. But if you have a family that's contributing to that problem, but you have this cushy job offered to you outside of school, and you have this awesome life offered to you because of who your parent is, are you willing to sacrifice your potential future to make that stand and not be a problem? Or are you willing, or are you going to be like, forget that. I need to, get what's out there for me. We can all relate to this to some certain degree. All of us have levels of ethics in our jobs and our lives that are questionable. And some of those things no one ever notices. But are we standing on top of that soapbox, saying shame, shame, shame to everyone else in the entire world and the country for their problems, without looking inward at ourselves and saying, well, what am I doing to contribute to the problem? What sacrifices can I make? And I feel like through sacrifice, people can truly grow and learn and become better people and know who they are. And I think that's the message of this movie. is you don't have to go to a radio station, hold it up with, arms and weapons, but what are you doing to contribute to anything that you see as a problem, something that you can, legally and peaceably do about it? And how can you eliminate yourself from that equation?
Here's an interesting conversation, and this could be a video in and of itself, kind of like a video essay you did for cricket on our channel. Check that out. That was super, super cool. But do you think, and I'm not sure if the filmmaker knew this going in, but do you think that people can be influenced by media, by films? Here's my reasoning. Would they have done this had they not been portraying the actors, had they not been portraying Bhagat Singh and these other revolutionaries? Let's say that they had not studied them, they had not portrayed them at all, but their friend who was still a pilot ends up dying, and this happens. You think they do that? And if the question is no, then obviously they were influenced by an outside influence, which was playing these characters. Well, can media influence people the same way? Watching these stories, because let's be honest, very few people read anymore. So our reading is media, okay, whether it's entertainment media or serious media. And what I mean by that is, okay, Tiger King has people not just opening up cases. The district attorney from Florida actually opened up the case again for Carol Baskins if she killed her husband. Like, are you kidding me? The movie, the Netflix documentary as well, When They See Us, about the Central Park Five, that has so much media scrutiny going on. Those prosecutors and those detectives that did things there, they were, brought up on charges. Like, media has power. And when it doesn't matter whether it's radio, whether it's television, whether it's movies, media has power. I remember the very first time I realized that was watching Oliver Stone's JFK, and then reading at the end how because of the movie JFK, Congress actually passed a law that they had to release the files. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, a movie did this? So I think that's just a more interesting conversation to have. Like, were these guys only influenced because they were playing these roles, and are we all susceptible to that influence of, if you see something, you become passionate about it, and you can even become ingrained or indoctrinated into a certain belief?
Yeah, for sure. This movie it's got so many deep levels to it. There's so many deep conversations you can have with it. I did have a few small minor issues with it, nothing big. And it all centered around our female lead character and her storyline. She gets fired from her job because of cutbacks, basically. And she's like, forget about it. I'm still going to India. I'm still going to make my movie, my documentary, which, okay, I got behind this. Okay, that sounds fine. But the thing that kept hanging me up was even a small production, a small documentary is going to take a serious amount of money to make that happen. She had zero money. She's staying out there in hotels. She's employing the Sonia character. She's, having these guys who are, yes, they're no longer in college or they're on break, but they're spending every waking moment feeding these people. Where did that money come from? It was a small thing, but it kept bugging me. And I wondered why the movie did that at the beginning, as opposed to her having the job finance this documentary, but having her boss constantly control what she did and stifle what she did, to the point where she said she had her own Bhagat Singh moment where she rebelled and said, you know what, I don't need your money. I don't need you right now. Keep all the money. I'm out here doing this documentary, with my blood, sweat, and tears because I'm passionate about it. For me, that would have made a little more sense. I'm not sure why we introduced this boss. They have her fire, and then we never come back to that story ever again. I thought it was going to come back at the end. The movie was going to get made, and the boss was going to say, oh, yeah, I want to hire you back, and blah, blah, blah. And she says, no, forget it. That was kind of weird for me. Some of the movie took a little while for it to get going. I did like the character had studied Hindi. I thought that was cool how she had learned about it at night because she was getting really passionate about the history. I thought it was cool that the granddaughter or great-granddaughter of one of the jailers who was there with Bhagat Singh felt so passionate about Bhagat Singh, understanding that he was treated poorly and whatnot. I thought that was cool. I just thought it was weird about the documentaries. Movies take money to make even a small documentary. But, That's my biggest problem with this movie, which tells you how much I liked it.
I think that I don't think she was fired. I actually think she quit. That was my understanding, that she ended up just quitting because they wouldn't make her film.
Well,
So
it
she
sounds like
walked
they were
out.
going to cut back in her division because they didn't have the funds for it. And so they were telling her, and she's like, whatever. And then she packed her stuff, and the lady's like, oh, wait, where are you going? Where are you going? Trying to save face. But she's like, and she called her the B word in Hindi. But I think she was done, dude. I could be wrong. Or maybe at least her story was done.
Right. Well, her story for sure was they wanted her to cover something else, but I think that made sense. And I think what the director wanted to show there, that's why he said, well, if it were another figure like Gandhi or someone else, is that, the British did not want this story being told because it is such a horrific and shameful part of history. And it's just like, let's be honest, here in America, okay, whenever there's a lot of films that come out, that are going to be controversial, who wants to get behind that? Especially it has to do with slavery and things that happen in this country. The film, as a matter of fact, When They See Us, that Netflix put out, and it's not, they broke it up into like 6 pieces. It's a 6-piece, no, 4 pieces. It's 4 episodes. If you haven't seen it, you got to see When They See It. It's amazing, guys. But she was trying to get that made for years before Netflix stepped up and said, okay, because that's why she had so much footage already, okay? And a lot of times people just aren't going to put their name behind it. So I think that was the point of showing that because they had just said flat out, no, you're done, we're going to let you go. No, what they said was, well, if it was someone else, like, just insinuating, if you pick somebody else, if you want to do your documentary and you do it on these people, it's okay, but absolutely not Begot Singh, because that paints us in the worst of lights, if that makes sense. That's at least how I interpreted it. For me, my problems were some of the shots. Like you said, you explained the slow-mo shots and the some of those other shots, and I guess if that's the vision the director was going for, it makes sense to me. I was just like, this was made in 2007. Some of the quality should be better. But then if it was shot that way because she's a student, because she's not a professional, she's making a documentary, but she's not a professional in and of herself, and she's working with students, then I guess that makes sense. But yeah, I didn't have too many problems other than that. The Sonia character, we really didn't mention her too much. I thought she was awesome as well. She basically was the linchpin between this group of Indian students and the British girl, so that was cool. I mean, honestly, man, this film was so good, so touching. I was just really, really floored though with the performance, and and you know what? I think the kid that played Karam, I gotta look up his name. I think he might have done a better job than Amir Khan, to be honest with you. Siddharth.
I agree.
And maybe it was by design.
Performance, especially the second half.
And they gave him the hardest material. Okay, he was the one who had to sacrifice the most. And I was like, wow, like, you know what I mean? I was just captivated by him at the end, to the point where not that I forgot Amir Khan was in this film, but that he became the main focal point for me of this entire film, if that makes sense. But I'm ready for a grade. How about you? We've been going on for a while about this movie.
No, for sure. I just want to add one more thing. I like the Sonia character, but I do feel like the actress that portrayed her was not the best actress in this film, or not the best actor in this film. I thought in a lot of parts she overacted certain scenes. When she was cracking up, it seemed really fake. When she was really upset about what happened to her fiance, I didn't think she had the best chops for this role, and her role was not an easy role to play. So I wouldn't have minded a different actress for that character. But as far as a grade goes, I mean, this is pretty easy. I gave an A+ to Begot Singh because that was a very impactful film. This movie I didn't enjoy as much, but it was still very good. So I'm going to give it an A-.
Okay. You know what? I respect your grade. I think here I'm gonna be a little higher than you. I think last time it was opposite. I'm gonna give it a solid A. Some of the shots bothered me, but other than that, the storytelling didn't bother me. I honestly forgot, and you're right. Well, you could pretty much nitpick a hole in any film and say that doesn't make sense. But in real life, where did she get the money to make that film? I didn't even think about it until you brought it up in the conversation right now. I was just immersed in the rest of that story. And to me, I think that story is so much more relevant today than anything else, because we're not, we're no longer fighting the tyranny of the British Empire, or here in America, we're no longer really fighting slavery. They keep us distracted with a lot of this stuff. What we're really fighting now is inequality, and that's the worldwide. You know what I mean? Like, let's just be candid. Who was it that I want to say it was like Bill Gates came out and admit, like, look, there's a problem where we live in a system that, I make more money than small countries. Okay, my income is higher than entire countries. There's a problem where 95% of the world's wealth is controlled by 5% of the population, and this is one of the richest people on the planet saying it. You know what I mean? So I just think it was so much more relevant talking about that today. The big enemy is greed. The big enemy today is, that affluence and politics, and, not the same revolution that was fought so many years ago in India and even here in the United States. But, there's a new enemy. And I think that's why it was so much more impactful to me. But I'm going to give it a solid A. Love this film. And definitely, I'm glad that our subscribers let us know, watch Bhagat Singh first, because I tell you what, had I not watched Bhagat Singh and understood what had happened, then I was like, these 5 kids would never do this over, their pilot friend. But now you understand why they did it, and they became immersed in those roles and became almost to an extent indoctrinated into that revolutionary spirit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and one of the craziest lines in this film, I don't know it word for word, it talks about how, Bhagat Singh and his friends, they went through what they went through, and look at what India is like today. And this is just from what the character's saying in the movie. Hasn't made a big difference. We have our independence, but look who's running the country, corrupt, like we talked about, and that's in a lot of countries, unfortunately. And I thought that was really powerful. You watch Bhagat Singh's story, and you're like, man, that's tragic. But, he got his message out. Good for him. But then you think about how much of the country has not heard that message yet. So I thought that was really powerful in this movie. This movie is very deep. This movie is very enjoyable to watch. And I'm glad we've watched, like you said. If you like our review, it's a lengthy one, but that's okay. Then go ahead and like and subscribe. Go ahead and check out some other videos we have. We may be slowing down the videos the next little while because copyrights are just crazy right now. We're going to be doing a lot of discussions, which is why we're called Boring Reviews, so that's okay. So sit back and expect more of those types of videos as opposed to reactions in the near future. But with all that being said, thanks for listening. And until next time.
We know all things.